Welcome to another episode of the Creative Studio Productions Podcast. I'm John Oney.
And I'm Ben Branham.
I am a Pepsi man, but we were at Chipotle.
Oh, I see. So it was left over from that.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. I thought you poured in like a...
No, I am too cheap to go get another drink. I will just sip my Coke Zero and call it good.
And why do you like Pepsi better than Coke?
Basically because...
It's sugary?
Yeah, no, they're all the same, really, aren't they? But I don't know the taste. It tastes different.
It's just a different taste.
I used to be a Coke guy, like Diet Coke. Like if I was gonna mix a drink or something, it was definitely Diet Coke, and then whatever I'm mixing it with.
Yeah.
But now I'm just a Pepsi guy. I like the flavor. I don't drink that much, so I just like Pepsi better. It just tastes better. Why are you a Coke guy?
Oh, I think I'd rather have Coke than Pepsi for sure.
Really?
But definitely Mountain Dew over Mellow Yellow.
That's gonna need some explanation.
I don't think so.
Well, why Mellow Yellow over Mountain Dew?
It just tastes better. Simply just like you like the taste better than Coke.
Well, welcome to another episode of the Creative Studio Productions Podcast. I'm John Oney.
And I'm Ben Branham.
And we are here to talk today about a very important subject, brainstorming.
Yes.
Brainstorming. It's something that really every company should do whenever they are starting the creative process.
Yes, absolutely. It's the beginning stages of anything that they should do in order for you to do anything creative or financial or whatever it might be.
Sure.
Vision.
Yeah. I think a lot of times companies think if they hire just one guy or the one gal or the right person, that then they won't have to do this.
Right.
But really...
Yeah, it's a collaborative thing.
Right.
I don't think a person can brainstorm well. I mean, you can brainstorm by yourself, but you can't brainstorm well as a solo. I think it takes a few people, at least two, to do it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's interesting about brainstorming is I've found whenever, I think I have a great idea and I want to do something on my own, it's always the end product always turns out better when other people are involved in the process.
Yeah. When they can put some feedback and a different perspective and spin on things.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. Because it's not just about the one guy. It's not just about the one person.
No.
And then the rest of the people who are involved in that process, when you're taking ideas, feel valued and feel heard.
Right.
Like their opinion, their contribution to the brainstorm matters. And that's important for any company, really.
Right.
But especially in the creative process.
Yes.
So when we're talking about brainstorming and, clients will come to us and they'll say, hey, we want this type of design or we want this type of logo or website or print media, what have you. Ben, what kind of is your process of kind of starting the brainstorm and kind of really getting that put together?
Yeah, I think I do a lot of homework ahead of time. I feel like I'm constantly brainstorming, even if I'm not on a project. I'm always on the hunt or look for the newest trends in design and what is people's overall look and what they're feeling for. I use a lot of. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say like what kind of websites or what kind of things are out there that you go to that kind of help spur those ideas?
Well, the simplest one that a lot of people use is Pinterest.
Oh yeah.
It's a nice way to pin things that relate to certain whatever it might be. Logo design, flyer design, that type of thing. You can make your own board and refer to them at a later date.
So do you just have like a plethora of design boards that you get ideas from?
I think I have specific things. Like I have design boards simply for like even like stickers and just simple little ideas and things like that.
Sure.
And then logos. Yeah. You know, the other site that I use that's actually a lot like Pinterest is Behance. It's Adobe's Behance.
Oh yeah.
And I know not a lot of people use it, like the typical person, but for a designer, it's a great resource. Designers can see other designers' work, and it's a great way to showcase your work and also to get inspiration from.
Yeah, I know that. I've heard that, a lot of graphic designers actually use that. You know, maybe not somebody at a company might not know about Behance, but a lot of the graphic designers out there will go there and get inspiration.
Right.
And you can even actually download one of our fonts, right? Because we were featured on one of the Behance's.
On one of their boards as one of the coolest like free fonts you can download.
Yeah. What's the name of the font again?
Modular.
And that was designed.
Yeah, that was designed by me a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you can also go to our website at cspmn.com and actually go ahead and download that free font as well.
Yes.
So
as well as two others.
Yes, as well as, what are the other ones called?
One is art. No, you're putting me on the spot. Modern Deco and Branham Cursive.
Branham Cursive. Did you draw every little part of that because it's your cursive? Jeez. That's a very original name, by the way.
I know. I wasn't feeling I should have probably brainstormed.
I'm actually quite disappointed in you, Ben. You did not brainstorm for that one.
No, I should.
That was not a brainstorm.
I included you on that brainstorm session.
That's funny. Well, back to brainstorming. Like when we're talking about a brainstorm meeting and whatnot, it's interesting to think about like what the process is in order to have a good brainstorm. Because I've been a part of brainstorm meetings that were unproductive and unhealthy.
Absolutely. I know it's very cliche to say, but like there is no bad idea.
Right.
And to not put an idea down, because that bad idea can really lead to really good ideas.
Right. I have a lot of bad ideas.
Yeah, we both do. Yeah,
that eventually
part of the brainstorm.
That eventually leads to some good ideas.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
And one of the ways that we kind of get around, somebody might have what you would think is a bad idea, and instead of saying no, that's dumb or that's a bad idea, a better way to say that or phrase that to kind of help them feel heard is, well, that's an interesting way of putting it. Let's run down that road a little further.
Right.
Or, hey, let's flush that out a little bit more before we just say yes or no to that idea.
Yeah. Or just completely just annihilate the idea. That's stupid. Let's go on to a different.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that you've said that to me more times in a brainstorm than not.
I don't think that's true. I may have thought it.
Right.
No.
So yeah, when you're doing a design and you're kind of getting that brainstorm with the client and you kind of include them in the creative process, kind of what happens once you kind of settle on something? Like how do you know when the brainstorm is kind of done?
Well, with design, I often give the clients multiple concepts, right? And those basically are brainstorms, right? So, like for a logo design, I usually do 3 to 4 that I give them.
So the client will actually receive proofs from you of like 3 to 4 directions that you could go.
Right. And I try to vary them drastically so that it narrows down their vision for their logo.
Sure.
So then we can, if they like a certain, let's do a minimalist version, we can go down and actually really tailor it to what they want.
Right.
Because oftentimes a client has an idea of what they want, but they can't articulate it.
Sure.
And so to give them a variety of styles is usually helpful.
What are the key phrases that you hear from people when they're like, hey, I want a logo, but I want it simple, or hey, I want a logo, but I want it kind of like the old style. Like,
right.
What are those phrases that you hear often?
Yeah. Sometimes you get like, I want a vintage look, or a modern deco look, or very clean and simple. But that's often not usually what they have in their mind.
Really?
Yeah. It's usually, I have a client that
That's
like, I
interesting.
want something very minimal and very vintage, but where the direction that we're going is not that at all. It's actually quite modern, quite clean, and very simple. And that's actually what I love. I love the direction we're going. That's not what the words that they said at all.
That's interesting. So you got to kind of interpret some of that.
So part of that brainstorming is actually just pulling out and giving them, like I said, other versions so they can see like, oh, this is a better route than what I had envisioned, or this fits our brand better.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always wondered, like, how do you interpret some of that, especially people who maybe don't have any sort of concept of design background.
Right.
They have a vision in their head, and you're trying to get that vision out onto paper.
Right. And the other thing I tell people is, please be honest when giving feedback.
Absolutely.
It's not going to hurt my feelings, right?
Right.
The worst thing you can do is be like, oh, no, I don't like these. I want something different. And that's fine. You can do that, but you need feedback. That's part of the brainstorming process, is to give feedback, not just, hey, come up with some new options.
Right. I think, again, it's important to point out that there's a difference between good feedback and being critical.
Right.
I think
That's true.
I think so many times, we've come up into situations where we'll have a client that says, hey, I want a video. Well, okay, what do you want the video of? I'm not quite sure yet. I'll know it when I see it. So you present some options and they say, I want to go this direction. So you go that direction, you have a finished product, and at the end they're like, you know what, I don't like it. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to take that personally, right? Like, I'm not going to personally be offended by that, because our goal is we want the client to absolutely love what they get. Our goal is that.
Yes.
And so when we hear a client say that, I don't like it. Okay, that's not good feedback. That's being critical. So tell us what you don't specifically like about this video or this product that we are offering to you.
Right.
And once we can get people to start articulating something, it's not that they don't like it. It's like they're not connecting with a certain piece of it. And if we just tweak that a little bit, or take something out or add something in, all of a sudden
they love it.
They love it again.
Yeah. It could be just the music bed itself. Right. They just don't know that it might be just, Yeah, we had that with that one client. Right. Who, one of them was a committee that was looking at the video, and one person didn't like the music bed and the other three did. And the one I was communicating with was the one who didn't like it. Right. And whatnot. And then come to find out, just as a simple change, it wasn't even that drastically different of a music bed, right? But we ended up putting in something new, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this took this to a whole other level for them, So, and so speaking of that, how do you brainstorm options and things for video? How do you start that process? Yeah. So, with the video process, it's obviously a little bit different than design. We kind of think about what is the story that we want to tell, right? And so we use, we've talked about this, story-based marketing is kind of our thing. And so when we're thinking about that story and how we're going to tell that story, the first thing I ask my clients is, what do you want people to feel? What do you want them to feel when they watch this video? Is it joy? Is it compassion? Is it happiness? Is it sorrow? What do you want them to feel? And then the second thing I ask them is, what do you want people to know? So that way, once people kind of feel something, they can set an expectation. So that's our story-based pyramid. And if you missed that, you can go back to season 1 and listen to that podcast where we explain that whole thing. Right. But what do you want people to know is the second question. And so that's usually kind of like maybe some basic
very basic information about what their product will do for them. So meaning, how will your product or your brand or your service help change the way this person manages their time? Or will it give them more time at home? Will it give them more time to focus on their hobbies, to do what they love? And then the last question is what usually people start with. What do we want people to do?
Right.
And so from there, what do we want them to do? We want them to engage with your product. We want them to engage with your service or what have you. So that's kind of the last thing we ask. And so once we get kind of those 3 questions figured out, the last thing we start talking about is now what story, what visual compelling elements can we use to kind of tell this? So I recently had a client come to us and she said, I want a minute-long video. This video needs to kind of showcase our services they do captioning actually for videos.
Yeah.
It's video captioning for deaf people. And it's a really cool service.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Absolutely necessary.
Right.
So she came to me and she's like, I have this idea. I want the student talking to a professor, and then I want all the audio to go away and just the captions to be on the screen. And I'm like, okay, let's think about that. That's a cool concept. Let's run with that, right? But I know as a video guy that if we were to remove all the background, the room tone, if we were to remove the underscore, if we were to remove all the talking, that it's just going to be silence with people on the screen, that it could be distracting from the message that she actually wants to get out, how important captions are.
And it wouldn't be as engaging either.
Right. And so what I suggested to her was, I said, hey, how about we take this idea with this student talking to this professor, and instead of removing all the noise, let's do this. Let's have it be normal. With the music bed, we can hear their voices, and then let's add captions so we can see your service and what you do. And then let's, instead of removing all the sound, let's just go ahead and take out kind of the frequencies, muffle the voices, you know, like that shell shocked kind of feeling where there's almost a ringing in your ear. So then you're actually almost getting a sense of, I can't hear what they're saying, and I'm just hearing this ringing and this tone, and their voices are muffled. So then you kind of realize the importance of the caption. So we took that idea that she had, and we kind of ran down the road a little further, like we say, and we were able to create a compelling 1 minute easy video that's going to work for her needs to showcase her business. So
that's really cool.
But I mean, brainstorming for video, with all video, right? Every video is different. And so when I kind of like, if I'm looking for inspiration, I'll be honest, most of my inspiration comes from YouTube. Especially if I'm looking for something that's a little more compelling. I look for compelling stories. And then actually, believe it or not, music can really set the tone of a video.
Huge.
We had a client I'm taking a drink. We had a client this last month who wanted a video, and he didn't want any music bed. He was kind of going back and forth on whether he wanted a music bed or not.
And at first we were like, that might be okay, right?
Yeah.
This is an informational thing. It might be fine.
Right. It was, But what we found is he actually we didn't actually know what the content of the story. He was kind of just, he's a teacher. He does this. And so he's just come in. I don't need a teleprompter. Right. Just film me. And so we didn't really have a good, clear picture of the content, other than it was going to be about culture in the workplace. But what he ended up doing is he ended up telling this really great story. Compelling story about this janitor and how this janitor ended up impacting the life of this young boy, and this young boy became a doorman, and how this one organization actually lifts this doorman up as like the best employee because of what this janitor did for him, and how this doorman treated people.
And how he set the tone for their culture.
Right. And so at first there was no music bed, and I was like, man, this is a really good video, but
It's missing.
It's missing something. And so we just added a real simple music bed. And I tell you, my wife saw the video and she was in tears.
Really?
After she watched it, because she's like, that's such a good story.
Yeah.
And so we were able to capitalize on the emotion to kind of get people to feel what the story is, portraying.
Right.
And so that's just a real powerful kind of emotional video that will actually move people, hopefully, to make a change in their work culture and their workplace.
Right. So how do you brainstorm your music beds? How do you find the right music?
That's a good question. I have a subscription to Artlist.io. I used to use things like Audio Jungle and Premium Beats and all these other things, but those websites you actually have to pay usually per song, and it can be anywhere from $5 to $60 depending on what the song is, right? And so I mean you can spend a good amount of money on Underscore. And so I found this one website called Artlist.io. I think one day I was on Facebook and Facebook targeted me, which is creepy, by the way, that they can do that. But they targeted me with this ad for Artlist.io. And so I went to Artlist.io, and it's a subscription service. And so you can actually I think we pay $200 a year, and we can download as many music beds as we want, which is great because there were so many times where I'd be like, you know what, I think that's the song I want.
Sure.
And I download it.
Yeah, and then
after I previewed it, I download it, and then all of a sudden something changes in the video, or maybe I listen to it and I'm like the next day and I'm like, you know what, this isn't it. Right. And then I've just spent more money. Whereas with Artlist, I can literally go back and download as many songs as I want. Now, I will say this, there's different genres on Artlist.io, and maybe they don't have quite the library.
Okay.
But I will say that their library fits the tone better than some of the other kind of websites I've gone to and downloaded songs. Like some of the songs on like Audio Jungle, they're not mastered, or they're not mastered correctly, and they're just not that great. Whereas with Artlist, I found every time it's good quality audio that we're going to. And no, this is not sponsored by Artlist, by the way. Although maybe we should get a sponsorship from Artlist.
So, maybe
there was a good commercial plug for them.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're kind of wrapping up a project, Ben, and you've kind of got the final product to the client, what is kind of your final, like, do you have like a final edit? Like, here's the final wrap up. Like, how do you make sure that it is what the client envisioned?
Yeah. Make sure what they envisioned. Well, I think that all stems to the beginning of the brainstorming process.
Right.
And if we get it to a point where they're like, yes, that's it, I go and then give them multiple different versions of that piece. Let's just pick on logo design, for instance. You want a black and white version. You want a colored version. You want a horizontal version, especially nowadays with all the different types of social media and ways that you use it. You want them in different sizes and variations. So I give them a whole host of a basically just
multiple formats.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're just getting one logo. They might be getting one design.
Right.
But they're getting that design in many different formats.
Absolutely. And different colors based on their color palette that we hit on as well.
Yeah. Let's talk about colors for a little bit, actually. Thanks for bringing that up. How does color help kind of, because I mean, we do story-based marketing, but each design you do, I'm just blown away because it also tells exactly what the organization is or the event that's going on. But how does color help tell a story for design?
Yeah, absolutely. A color ties into what the overall vision of the company and also what they strive towards and what they do as a company, as a whole, because we'll pick on, we did a project for West Central Biosolids.
Right.
They are a company that literally takes waste product and makes it into fertilizer, right?
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, that can be challenging. I mean, you don't want to just like have it brown.
Right.
Right. So you want it to be, they are doing environmentally friendly fertilizer.
Yep.
And they're reusing waste. And so it is a type of recycling, which is good for the earth. So we use very bright greens and blues.
Yeah.
And that reminds you of earth. And yeah, it worked perfectly for that client. Yeah. So, I loved working with West Central Biosolids.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Not only that, but we had this idea, let's talk about brainstorms. Mm-hmm. We had this idea because we were brainstorming, like, because we did their website and everything.
Yeah.
We did video work for them. And we're like, hey, how do we communicate that we are environmentally friendly,
right,
and all this stuff? And we did that through the logo design with those nice bright greens that you beautifully put together. But then we're like, one of the problems they faced was that people in town were saying, oh, this place stinks, or right. And so, and they tried to mitigate that as best they could.
They sure did. Yeah.
But then we're like, hey, what if we capitalize on this? Mm-hmm. Let's acknowledge that we know it stinks.
Right.
Right. And so, like, I think one of their website pages, one of the main pages, I think we came up with this slogan that says, they say you can't polish a turd, but we beg to differ.
Right. Adding some humor to it.
Right. Adding humor to it.
And acknowledging it, that it's a thing.
But it's a necessary thing.
Right.
In order to get this fertilizer to crops so we can grow healthy corn and soybeans and all those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And another thing that, switching topics a little bit with from color, is actually using upper and lowercase. I had a client who was doing a faith-based blog.
Okay.
And his logo was all caps, and I felt like his original logo was very in your face.
Sure.
And it wasn't like, it was kind of like it portrayed the concept that they were telling you what to do instead of coming alongside and here's how you can, best be a good parent or whatever it might be.
Right.
And so I suggested that you do upper and lowercase, and it softened the logo, and it didn't make it as like in your face. Like,
interesting.
And when you get a text, like sometimes you text me in all caps accidentally, and it looks like you're yelling at me.
Well, that's because okay. I have to explain this a little bit. The reason why is because when I export a video from Premiere, if I'm not going through the media encoder, when you hit caps lock on your computer, it exports the video without the preview going.
Yes.
So it actually exports faster.
Yes.
So I'm not mad. And I think I say that in those texts too. I said, I'm not mad. I'm exporting a video.
But anyways, I think uppercase works in a lot of corporate settings as a logo, but in certain cases, it's upper and lowercase is best as well.
Right.
It's just kind of going back to using colors as well. You have to consider your messaging and what the company stands for.
Sure.
And your vision.
Well, it's kind of cool that if it was a parenting blog, faith-based parenting blog or whatever, you have the uppercase and the little children.
Yeah, exactly.
And the little children.
Yes.
Oh, man. Brainstorming is important.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. However you brainstorm, however you do that, it's important to do, and it's important to make sure you have multiple people involved in your brainstorm, because you will always come up with the better idea if everyone involved not only feels valued and heard, but if it is actually part of everybody's idea.
Absolutely.
One person doing it is just a very toxic atmosphere. And I'd go as far to say that if there is somebody in your brainstorm session that just says, no, that's dumb, and only wants to do their ideas, it's time for them to move on.
Agreed.
Because they are not being helpful, and it's not raising the value of the team.
Absolutely.
So brainstorming is important. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Creative Studio Podcast. We hope to see you next week. And don't forget to tip your DoorDash drivers. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.